You? I'm about to drink some Jack Daniels just now.
You watched Joe Biden last night deliver his first address to a joint session of Congress. He repeated twice this proposition that we are a systemically racist country. Your reaction?
Well, it's a bunch of horse manure. I mean, give me a break.
Well, Republicans nowadays seem to lack any real governing agenda, meaning they can't tell you what they're for. They have no problem telling you what they're against, like so-called wokeness, Biden's ban on red meat, and democracy. So far, Republican legislatures in more than 40 states have introduced hundreds of bills targeting voting access and seizing authority over administering elections. Yesterday, Florida became the latest state to pass a bill that will make it harder for millions of people to vote.
This game's
by
over.
putting restrictions on drop boxes and voting by mail. It does not include
67-24, and the game was tied at 14-14. He went crazy in the second and third quarter.
For the effect of influencing a vote. I'm joined now by Florida State Senator Shepard Jones, a Democrat representing parts of Broward and Miami-Dade counties, and Ari Berman, senior reporter for Mother Jones, whose latest piece is called Florida Republicans Just Passed a Georgia-Style Voter Suppression Bill, and who's the author of the great book, Give Us the Ballot, The Modern Struggle for Voting Rights.
What?
So, Ari, how restrictive is this bill on a scale from 1 to 10 in your view?
Well, it's pretty restrictive, Zerlina, in considering that Florida was cited as a model for election integrity by Donald Trump.
Thank you.
Because this was the state they said was the model for the rest of the country in terms of how to run elections. And then when Democrats and black voters started using vote by mail at a higher rate than Republicans, that's when they decided to roll back mail voting, to ban drop boxes, to expand challenges to vote counting. So they wrote the rules, they won under the rules, but the minute that new demographic groups started using those rules, now they're rolling them back.
The same question to you, Senator. Do you think this bill is as bad as Ari lays that out? What's your rating on a scale of 1 to 10?
Absolutely. I think Ari is spot on. And truth be told, there is no scale when it comes to how we scale on the barriers when it comes to our civil liberties. Florida creating these barriers is nothing but a paragraph attempt by the Republicans, truth be told, because they lost. When you're talking about restricting how an individual can go to the ballot box to drop off their ballot, restricting those hours from 9 to 5, knowing that individuals are at work, knowing that in the African American community, that is where blue collar workers are.
The whole takeover is on the wayside. They didn't get a chance to shoot one.
These laws. This was a record number year for individuals.
Like, look at this shit.
And because of that, they changed.
How white? Yeah.
Of the Jim Crow era.
I'm trying to figure out how wide open do I have to be for some underpass as well.
Sheriffs, state legislators, senators, and governors. And Florida is moving the goalposts.
My ticket was about to disappear just now.
Ari, it feels to me to that point that there's a blueprint that
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this shit.
Following the lead of Georgia. So in your view, did Georgia just start this off and all other states are like, okay, we'll take that.
Finally, I got one shot.
Yeah, it's absolutely true that Georgia has become the blueprint for Republican voter suppression efforts all across the country. And we're seeing identical provisions now in state after state. We're seeing limiting drop-offs, banning mail ballots, banning voters from getting food and water in line, expanding challenges to vote counting. These are all things that Georgia did that's now happening in Florida, in Arkansas, in other states. And it's also clear that Georgia is the tip of the iceberg. That every week now, it seems like a new state restricts voting rights. And this is extremely alarming. We are in a very dire moment for democracy. A lot of people said now in Georgia, we couldn't let this happen in other states. Well, it's happening in Florida. It's happening in Montana. It's happening in Texas. It's happening in Arizona. Republican voter suppression is happening unchecked right now. And that's the most disturbing thing about all of this.
Senator, it feels to me like, to Ari's point,
I believe my guy's still here.
and folks were like, okay, this is bad.
Okay, it's 82 to 33.
The Georgia bill originally, you can't even give food and water to people standing on a line. But then I'm like, why are people on this line? The line is there because of other types of
I'm still trying to figure out why these guys still here.
So, in your view, is the messaging to voters clear enough about what the Republicans are attempting to do here?
Well, the one thing
I tried it.
Recognize that their voices are being heard, and that's why people are coming out to vote in the manner that they are doing. And so, because people recognize what the Republicans are doing, all this is doing is adding fuel to the flame to people saying that, okay, we've seen this before. We've been here before. If you want to try to restrict us to vote, therefore, we're going to come out in more massive numbers. I can tell you this, that groups, they know what the Republicans are doing, and they are already organizing to do these things to ensure that we are prepared for the next election. I'll say this, that as long as we are moving in this direction and the Republicans know that they are losing, people will continue to come out and show strength in numbers to ensure that our voices are heard. Because as long as we are in this position that we're in now and moving in this direction with someone like President Joe Biden, people know that we are better than what we were a few months ago when we had Donald Trump. We're going to keep moving forward.
We just have one more minute here, but Ari, in an exchange between Louisiana Senator John Kennedy and Stacey Abrams. I'm just going to paraphrase it instead of playing you the sound, but
Didn't even
essentially
get a
you're
chance to
trying to
shoot.
get her to explain how their voter suppression law in Georgia is racist. The racism seems pretty baked in, so to speak to how these bills are racist, just explain what she was trying to articulate in that hearing.
Well, what she was trying to articulate
I'm right beside you.
what's happening all across the country is that Republicans are targeting the voting methods that were used to increase turnout among black voters and voters of color. And in Florida, they're attacking mail voting after the black share of mail voting doubled.
Oh! I got my first day over.
Florida Republicans were fine with mail voting when white people were voting by mail. But when black people started voting by mail, then they're trying to roll it back. And that's the exact same thing that's happened in Georgia. That's what's behind all of these voter suppression efforts. That when black voters, students of color, turn out in higher numbers, instead of trying to reach out to more voters, you change the voting laws that kind of disenfranchise people in future elections.
Senator, can we fight these bills without federal legislation as American voters?
Well, listen, we can definitely fight. We need the federal government.
They have no turnovers?
But we also have to fight these things on the ground. It's going to take us to be on our feet to fight these tooth and nail. And I can tell you right now that we are prepared to continue to fight these things and take them all the way to the Supreme Court, because you cannot.
My guy is 3-19. Holy shit.
People know exactly what Republicans are on to, and they will not.
State Senator Shepard.
He started off perfect, and then he missed every shot after.
Thank you so much for being here tonight and for helping us discuss this extremely important topic. Voter suppression is anti-democratic and should not be happening in this moment. So thank you for making the time tonight to join us. That is all in for tonight. Chris Hayes will be back on Monday. You can find me hosting my show Zerlina weeknights at 6 p.m. streaming on Peacock. Make sure to check it out. The Rachel Maddow Show starts now. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Zerlina. Thank you,
Good
my
block.
friend. Much appreciated. Have an excellent weekend. And thanks to home for staying with us this hour. Really happy to have you here. Happy Friday night. So Mike Pence has a brother. His name is Greg. He looks just like Mike Pence. Well, he looks just like you'd imagine Mike Pence's older brother to look. family resemblance. It's a powerful thing. Same hairdo, really, same cheeks, same teeth, same smile that kind of creeps up a little bit on the right-hand side. Their noses are so similar, it's like they actually just share one nose. Greg, are you using the nose tonight, or can I have it? Mike, check the sign-up sheet. It's Tuesday. It's my turn for the nose. Greg Pence is now a Republican congressman from Indiana. Now, how did he get that gig? Well, he does share a nose with Vice President Mike Pence. And the seat that he holds is from his older brother's old district in Congress. Older brother Greg Pence honestly did not seem like he was destined for Congress before his little brother became Trump's vice president. Greg Pence ran gas stations and convenience stores in his previous life, and then some little strip malls for antiques and stuff. But when his brother went to the White House, that was his chance. And so now Greg Pence is in Congress. And now Greg Pence has just put out a multiple siren alert to his constituents back home in Indiana. Looks like this. Siren. Hoosier small business owners. Siren. Red alert. Help is on the way, he says. Help is on the way for those in the food and restaurant industry. How nice. Congressman Greg Pence letting his constituents at home in Indiana know that he is delivering for them. Help is on the way. If you run a restaurant in Congressman Pence's Indiana district, he has important information for you, how you can register to get COVID relief, to get financial assistance from the Small Business Administration's new Restaurant Revitalization Fund. How nice of Congressman Greg Pence to do that practical work, to deliver that help home to Indiana so he can say, help is on the way. One problem. Congressman Greg Pence voted against it. Voted against this thing that he is now touting. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund is part of President Biden's COVID relief bill. Greg Pence voted no on that. But that is not stopping him from telling all his constituents right now that help is on the way. The help that he tried to stop. That he voted against. The number 2 Democrat in the House, Steny Hoyer of Maryland, said this in response. He said, quote, glad to hear you think the American people deserve some help recovering from the effects of COVID-19. Representative Greg Pence didn't seem quite that way when you voted against the American Rescue Plan, which created this respite fund. But it's not just Greg Pence. He is not alone. Here, for example, is Texas Republican Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne doing the exact same thing, touting to her Texas constituents how much help is on the way to them, thanks to their hard-working congresswoman, who herself voted no on these COVID relief funds that she is now touting as a very valuable new program for people in her home district. Steny Hoyer was all over her as well. Quote, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund is a program authorized and funded through the American Rescue Plan, which you voted against. Same thing from Republican Congresswoman Claudia Tenney of New York, promoting these new COVID relief funds to her constituents in her home district, as if she helped get them, when actually she voted to stop them from happening. Congressman Hoyer with a big block shot there as well. Quote, Congresswoman Tenney promoting this program now does not erase the fact that you didn't vote for this assistance. New Yorkers will not be fools. Same thing in Wisconsin. Republican Congressman Glenn Grothman. You guys, help is coming. Help is on the way. And then the smackdown from the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, friendly reminder that Congressman Glenn Grothman voted against this relief that he is now promoting at home in Wisconsin. Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik of New York, same deal. She even uses the Mike Pence's older brother style siren, once again, to promote this great new relief plan to her district. You guys, come and get it. I'm Elise Stefanik. Here's your COVID relief funds. California Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, in response to this one, quote, he says, and, quote, perhaps you should have voted for it if you wanted to take credit for it and try to convince your constituents they're getting it because of you. They're getting it despite your best efforts. Talking Points Memo has been tracking some of these over the past couple of days. We've been following them too, particularly the Democratic responses. Because it's a peculiar sort of compliment and curse at the same time for the Democrats right now. I mean, if you are part of the party and in support of the administration that's actually getting stuff done, passing things into law that are making a real positive difference in people's lives. Right? So because of that, the law that made those programs and that relief possible, the law itself is really popular, and the programs themselves are popular. I mean, if you are part of that, you've been conceiving of that legislation, supporting it, working it through Congress, voting for it, good. Good for you, right? I mean, good for you politically. I mean, that's what politicians are supposed to be trying to do for their constituents, and their constituents generally want to reward and keep voting for elected officials who are able to do that kind of thing for them, who are able to practically deliver important and appreciated help when it's needed. That's the complementary side of doing your job well, getting popular, effective stuff done for the American people. Your constituents are probably going to like you for doing that. The other side of it, though, is the imposters, right? The sort of curse that goes along with it is that yahoos who had nothing to do with it, or worse, who actively worked and voted against this thing that you did, the most shameless among them will actually try to take credit for your work. The most shameless Republicans will try to take credit for what they tried to stop. They will try to take credit for these things the Democrats passed, only because they had enough votes to overcome all the Republicans voting. The Democratic Party, I think, has recognized that this was going to be a risk of them getting good stuff done in Congress, that Republicans would try to take credit for it even after voting no. The Democratic Party has been trying to fend it off with a number of different initiatives, all basically trying to remind Americans that the Republicans all voted no on this stuff they are now trying to claim credit for. They have been running TV ads recently. They've been putting up billboards like this one. Thanks to President Biden and congressional and Senate Democrats, we've been able to get all these things done. Help is here. No thanks to these Republicans, in this case, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, who voted no. Did you hear they voted no? Are they trying to take credit for what we did? Don't let them. They were against it. We're here to let you know. So it's been a concerted, almost sort of ham-fisted, but a concerted to make sure that Republicans at least have a hard time trying to take credit for something that they oppose and that the Democrats do. But if you were Greg Pence, you were Elise Stefanik or any of those other Republicans, what would you be trying to take credit for right now? I mean, if you felt like it's about time, we're 100 days into the new administration, 100 days since inauguration, re-election's coming up in not too long, I gotta talk to my constituents about something they're gonna like me for. What are your options? I mean, you have to imagine Republicans, especially ones who are worried about being reelected, are trying to find something to attach themselves to that seems popular, right? But they don't have very many options because Republicans across the country are actually working on and getting done are these huge, sudden, draconian rollbacks of voting rights in every state where the Republicans have control. Was voting easy and convenient this year for both Democrats and Republicans with expanded early voting and drop boxes, absentee ballots, and vote by mail? Yes, actually, it was easier to vote in many places in the country. COVID restrictions that made us worry as a country about whether or not people were going to be able to get out and cast their ballots made us think creatively and expansively about all the safe and secure ways that people could submit their ballots. And voters of all stripes took advantage of those conveniences. And we had great voter turnout even in the midst of the pandemic. Republicans all across the country are working furiously now to make voting as inconvenient and difficult as possible, which they think they need to do because they think that will help them win future elections, because they think that poor people and people with fewer resources won't be able to navigate the maze if they make the maze difficult enough. And so those people will end up just not voting. The remaining electorate will hopefully be more Republican. That's their calculus. But in order to get there, they really are, in many cases, making it harder to vote for everyone and taking away popular, convenient ways to vote. Even their own voters aren't going to like that. That is a hard thing to brag on. But that really is what they're working on, policy-wise, coast to coast. A voting rights rollback has just passed the legislature in Florida today. That is even more draconian than what the Republicans did in Georgia. That Florida bill is on its way to the Republican governor's desk. Governor Ron DeSantis says, of course, he'll sign it. Texas Republicans are on their way to pass a voting rights rollback that's even more draconian than that. I mean, that really is what they're working on. If my party, if I was an elected official in the party that only had that to brag on as our most concerted policy accomplishment right now, don't worry, we're making it way harder to vote. Did you find it easier to vote this year? We're taking care of that. That will never happen again. If that were the major concerted policy effort and set of accomplishments of my party this year, I too might be tempted to try to take credit for someone else's work that's actually popular instead of what I've actually been doing, which is not popular.
I'm just munching on my wings.
But this is what the Republican Party is working on, both in terms of, like, we have all these divisions, right?
I'm hungry as hell.
We talk about Republicans. It's the Trumpy Republicans and the, conspiratorial QAnon Republicans.
Oh, shit.
And it's the paleo conservatives. And it's the traditional conservatives. And it's the establishment Republicans. Establishment Republicans.
This guy's out here living that Red Lobster life.
Republicans have been working all along as one big unhappy family to pass voting restrictions everywhere. And where do you draw the line in terms of which types of Republicans are working on this scheme they've got going on now in Arizona? I mean, this may come from a really kooky part of the Trump world part of the Republican Party, but Republicans in Arizona really
save the rest of these wings until later.
Continuing with this bizarre and at times, I'm sorry, sort of ridiculous, but to them, dead serious effort to redo the 2020 presidential election count in Arizona. The Republicans in the state Senate in Arizona hired a mysterious company run by a QAnon conspiracy theory guy with no experience at all in anything related to elections. They hired him to do it. And their big plan for how they
the first time ever these wings were so filling to me.
Their big plan to undo that is just to give
machine.
millions of ballots from the Arizona presidential race, 2/3 of the presidential ballots that were cast in that election. They're going to give them to this firm run by a conspiracy theory guy. And he won't say exactly what he's going to do with those millions of ballots. He won't even say exactly who he is going to give all those
I know I didn't get P-Palms. What did I just get?
He's going to have a look, a hard look. And after he's had a good long look at all the ballots, doing what knows what with them. After that,
My wins.
tell Arizona Republicans what the real election is.
£1, bro.
Never mind that it's already been certified. It's been audited professionally twice. There's been a hand recount supervised by both parties. It's been certified at the state level, at the local level, and at the state level. And the Electoral College votes for Arizona have already been tallied, and nevermore they're going to get the real result from the QAnon guy who they give all the
16 wings.
That's really happening. We're going to have more on that bizarre story coming up later this hour. Republicans really are trying to establish this new founding myth for the American
And they hardly give me 16 wings neither, yo.
election results were all somehow
Most times it's like 14.
They got their own hands. Once they got their own people looking at the ballots, they were able to prove, or at least assert meaningfully, that Trump really won and Biden isn't really president.
That was delicious.
That new founding myth for the disauthentication of American voting results. That's what they're working on right now. So yeah, I'd take credit for the restaurant relief fund too, even if I voted against it, I suppose. Those were my shoes. But the story that keeps getting worse and worse and worse for them right now is the still developing story of the active federal criminal investigation that led to FBI raids this week, targeting former President Trump's personal board. This is the Wall Street Journal tonight, matching reporting in the New York Times from last night and further advancing the story about what those
Well, Clark joined the party and cut.
at the home and office of Rudy Giuliani this week were reportedly focused on. Wall Street Journal matching the New York Times reporting that they were focused at least